Everybody to the monthly board meeting of the Lake City Development Corporation. It is July 17th. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Rod, how about leading us today?
That'd be fine. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that. This is our first opportunity for public comment. So if anybody in the audience would like to give us some public comment, this is an opportunity. No? Okay. Next item is approval of the minutes for the June 19th monthly board meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes as written. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is a presentation by Riverstone West Family 3 Apartments. I need to recuse myself on this matter, so I'm going to ask Vice Chair Mr. Patzer to handle this meeting, if you would, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Well, Todd, Mary Ann, I'll turn this over to you guys to take us through your PowerPoint presentation and discussion afterwards. Welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Todd Prescott. My wife is in the audience, Mary Ann Prescott, so if there's any questions, she may be addressing some of the questions. We're here this afternoon to go over our proposal for a partnership with LCDC on the Riverstone 3 Apartments. Prior to jumping into that, I'd just like to look back on the partnerships that we've done with LCDC over the past years and just discuss the public benefit that we've provided. The first partnership that we've done with LCDC, which was, I believe, 3 years ago, was Mill River Apartments. Mill River Apartments is located down on Saltese, right across from Mill River. Our public improvements that we did there, or public benefit, was that we were to deed a parcel of property back to the city for their future sewer pipe that went across the Highway 90 underneath, and we did deed that back successfully. The project, our actual project, was completed on time, on budget. And we also provided the frontage utilities on our site, which got the public utilities over to the county side. So that was a very successful partnership that we did with LCDC. We completed everything that we said we were going to do. Riverstone West, we did a partnership with LCDC, I believe, 2 years ago. What we brought for public benefit to Riverstone West was the partnering in the infrastructure for prepping 12 commercial lots for access with utilities. At this point now, since all the utilities have been in, the majority of the lots have been sold. With the proposed new developments in the new parcels, we are looking at a little less than $300,000 per year in tax base that area has generated, and we'll go over that in the Riverstone West 2 application. But so we have done 2 applications with LCDC in the past. We have completed both applications. I believe we've done everything that we said we were going to do, and I hope that LCDC would come back and say that we were good partners. What I'd like to do is let's jump into the PowerPoint presentation. So this presentation is for Riverstone West 2 Apartments. What Whitewater Creek is requesting is a partnership for $280,000 to be reimbursed through the TIF over a 14-year period. This proposal is like the other 2 proposals that we've done. They're the other 2 partnerships that we've done. We are not looking for any dollars up front. What we would like to do would be reimbursed over the 14-year period through the dollars that we generate in tax revenue. What we propose to provide, and it was in your packets on the proposal, but we'll see it later on in this presentation, is a park on some landlocked property that's right behind the Riverstone West 3 Apartments. And it's, like I say, we'll look at it in future slides, but it'd be Xeriscape Landscaping, which is the latest and the greatest in the green communities. Other cities are doing it. Looks like this Coeur d'Alene area is headed this way. In part of this would be a dog park. We did a a study and actually did some counts that we'll get into of how many people are actually using the bike path. And also, we talked in length with the city parks director, and he concluded that if we were to build this park, it would have great connectivity to the existing city park that's in Riverstone, as well as possibly across the bike path as hopefully that area gets annexed in. What also we would provide with this for the public benefit would, our firm would do a long-term maintenance agreement, so there would be no cost to the city as far as maintenance goes. The reason for this request is the same reason that we've come to the board in the last 2 times for Riverstone West and for Mill River. IHFA requires us for the points to provide us with tax credits to show local participation. The local participation, they want to see urban renewal districts get involved in the project. So this is a linchpin for the project. We did a public charrette on this particular Riverstone West 3 application last week. It was on the, I believe, on the 10th, last Wednesday. And there was low turnout, but the turnout that was there was very, very positive results after we went through the process of what our proposal was. And we do have support from the City Park and Rec, which I think there was a letter in your packet for in the application. So we're going to, in the upcoming slides, we'll look at a project overview, community rental needs, the proposed use, public value, us as developers, look at LCDC long-term goals, and project funding. Riverstone Community. Currently, Riverstone Community is looking at a major resurgence due to the market firming up. There's some good momentum going on down there. The Riverstone West apartments that we put in with help from LCDC was very, very successful. There are other residential developments that are being drawn in. Project overview. This is just a picture of one of the three-story buildings that we did build in Riverstone West. The proposed Riverstone West 3 would look just like these buildings, so it would look like a small community there, so that the 2 phases will actually look like 1 phase. Project overview. That's just another picture of another site. Okay, this is the This is actually Riverstone looking down on it. If we can get this to work correctly. Here is, this area right here is Riverstone West that we partnered with previously with LCDC. We have purchased these 2 lots over here. This is where we are proposing Riverstone West 3. We have also purchased these 4 lots in here. We have a proposed Riverstone Place apartments in there, 114 units. This is an actual site plan that will go into that sawtooth area. There's a kids' play area, which will be right here. This is the community center. This building and this building here will look identical to the buildings that are down there, so it will look all as 1 phase. Community rental needs, and this is all supported by Riverstone West, the first phase that we built. We are going to have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom family units as rentals. We are addressing the 40 to 50% area median income. The tenants in those units would have income level of $15,480 to $29,850. We're going to provide 13 ground floor units for accessibility. The accessible units are in short supply in this area. I think that the fair housing studies that the city's done will support that. The affordable rents for this income bracket on those units would be $347 to $614. Currently, in this particular marketplace, affordable units, the vacancy rate is 1.6%, which is historically low. Incremental demand, as we sit today, is 134 units, so we're just barely tapping the need for the market. This also aligns with the City Affordable Housing Assessment that was done and I believe was just updated recently. The marketplace continues to be undersupplied at all levels on the rental market, including the market rate. I can't quote exactly what the market rate vacancies are, but they are in the mid to low single digits. The market study, one question that we've had in the past with LCDC was market studies, does the market actually need this? The market study was approved by the IHFA, the Housing and Finance Association, and they have vetted the market study. Proposed use, and we'll show a picture in the next slide or two, public park improvements to the city of, beyond the city of Coeur d'Alene land. It'll be providing connectivity for future developments and the current city park that's there. One of the reasons why we are here also is the apartments that I said that we have proposed for the 4 center lots is the same equity group that is providing the equity for Riverstone West 3. And in the terms of the equity are that we combine both of the projects together. The complex Riverstone Place that'll be in the 4 interior lots of John's Loop is a full ride taxpayer, so that would be market rate tax. So with LCDC support for the $280,000 application, we can bring 152 units to this community. It would be 114 in the center of John's Loop and the 38 that we're asking to partner for today. Proposed use, and in the next few slides, we will show you the 2 market rates. Future developments will bring $295,000 in annual tax revenue to the city of Coeur d'Alene. That'll be our center apartment complex on the 4 lots. Just to the east of Riverstone West that we have already constructed, there is a proposal to build 48, 55 and older for sale senior product. The value on that is between $12 and $14 million in sales and value, and the $295,000 of the annual tax revenue would come from the value of that 48 units of senior plus the 114 units that we have in the center of John's Loop. We've talked in length, and there was a letter in your proposal with the city parks director. We have his support. He's very enthusiastic. The city would have to approve this. It would have to go on a city agenda, and they would obviously would have to take a look at this and run it through their process. It sounds like they could get it on their August agenda. Also on this proposed use, we will include a long-term maintenance agreement for the actual park. We will have a maintenance team for all 3 of those locations that will take care of the park. And I think that with we've been in Riverstone West now, I believe, a year and a half. I think that the way that we've taken care of our site will reflect the way that we would take care of the park. So here is the actual location of the park. This parcel is the existing 50 units of a partnership that we've done with LCDC, which was successful. Here's where we are proposing to put Riverstone West 3. This hashed mark over here, this whole parcel, is city property. Here is the bike path that goes right along the outside of this. If I can get that over there, there we go. That particular area, that hash area is 1.4 acres. It's landlocked city property. I would assume that the city would never do anything with this property simply because it backs up against this commercial residential. It's currently not graded at this point. And the city parks director was very enthusiastic to think that possibly we could connect from here all the way out to where the city park is, and I believe that's a 30 or a 40-foot strip where the city would have to negotiate with or chat with the next 48 senior units, which would go right in here, and maybe have them improve their frontage to get to the city park, which is further to the east. This property over on the other side of the bike path, I believe, is county. I believe there's discussion of annexing that. The view from the city parks director was this would create great connectivity to the park to the city park to the east, and all the way jump over the bike path to start another park over on the other side. Here's the actual park, and there was a this was in your packet. So what this would be a public park on city property. This would be a rest shelter for the bike path. As you can see, there would be an on and an off ramp to get in here. The rest shelter would be right here. The dog park would be right in this area here. There'll be pathways through there, walking pathways through this. We do a xeriscape demonstration in the garden area. We've done a LEEDs Platinum multifamily project up in Sandpoint, and I think that we can apply some of the xeriscape landscape products that we used up there here, and this could be a really cool PR event because it would be low water, low maintenance. We can also use effective use of this as swale area for the residential parts. Total budget on this is $280,000. Our look at this may be a tad over $280,000 at this point. If it goes over the $280,000, we will take care of that. And obviously, we will go through the certification process as we did with Riverstone West and with Mill River. Why we designed the dog park in there is back in May, on May 4th and May 5th, we actually did counts of how many people were actually using the bike path. May 4th and May 5th was one of the first good days of the summer, but obviously it was not in summer. It was 70 degrees on both days. We counted roughly 700 people on that Saturday that crossed the bike path coming into the city, and on Sunday there was close to 600 that used the bike path. Of that, 65% of those were on bikes. The remainder were on foot, skateboards, or rollerblades. And almost 10% of that 35% that were on foot had dogs. And that's how we came up with the addition of that dog park area. The dog park area would be fenced. The public value of Riverstone West 3, the job count on this will be, during construction, will be 94 jobs. There'll be one permanent job on site, which will be a manager. There'll be one part-time job, which would be a maintenance person. The total earnings generated for the construction will be $2.7 million. Public value also is to pick up permits. The fees to the city would be about $275,000. We are assuming that the assessed value would be about 1.75. Will generate $25,670 in annual property taxes, $216,000 in annual savings to local Idaho Housing and Finance Section 8 vouchers. The tax credits that we use on this buys down the rents, and what this means is that the Section 8 voucher program will not have to be used because the rents are lower. That's a projected savings that we could do for the whole site during the year. Green building design packages is part of the state threshold, which we have to certify after the project is complete. Whitewater Development, which is Mary Ann Prescott and myself, we've been in business since 1997. We developed over 41 affordable housing projects in our region and locally. LCDC long-term goals. One of the goals is develop stagnant areas efficiently. Obviously, Riverstone West, this part of Riverstone was a sand pit, and we now have housing there. And this also strengthens the employment market in that area. Strengthen another goal of LCDC is to strengthen the economic base. These site improvements will bring the value. Stimulate new commercial expansion. We'll actually be able to have wage earners live in Riverstone, which will help out the employment, which is next. The economic growth is what we'll bring to the table through the construction, plus the increased tax base. LCDC long-term goals, public-private partnerships. As we discussed before, I would like to believe that our first two partnerships were very productive for both the community LCDC and Whitewater Creek. From our point, we feel that it was productive. Low public funds ratio. Large portion of this is actually equity coming in from the equity investor. And we did vet this through the public meeting process. It was well received. Very low attendance, but I think we did transmit that there is support for this in the community. Why are we requesting LCDC funds? As we stated earlier, Idaho Housing and Finance has a requirement that 5% of the project costs be funded locally. That 5% equals the $280,000 that we're requesting to partner with LCDC. This also is critical for the community affordable housing needs based on the studies that we've got and based on what the vacancies that we are running and all the affordable units in the area. Critical element in bringing the complex to Coeur d'Alene. This LCDC is needed to make this happen. Without such TIF funds, the project will not be allowed to move forward by IHFA. And as we said, and in your packet is a letter from the equity investor to get the terms that we need to get this complex done, as they're tying the equity of both 114 units on the inside of John's Loop to this 38 units that are on the outside. Project funding, total development costs are $5.9 million. Sources for the funds of the project include a private grant, which is $10,000, which is coming through a local not-for-profit. We do have a small Idaho home funds dollars in there. Section 42 federal tax credits, which are allocated by the state, and we did compete for those. GP loan, which is from us, which is private. Permanent bank financing, and then if we are successful with LCDC, the tax increment financing. I'd like to address just a couple issues and why we did the public meeting. One of the reasons why we did the public meeting was because of what had happened Midtown over the last 2 years with NIMBY issues with affordable housing there. I really took a look at it, and we personally invited, I shouldn't say I personally invited, but a lot of the people that were opposed to Midtown were invited to our public meeting and did not show. I did some research on how and why that whole conflict came about. And I actually looked at some of the portfolios of some of the opposing forces that stopped that project. And if you in some of those portfolios that some of those individuals have, there's actually subsidized Section 8 housing. And we get criticized because our type of housing people think is subsidized by the Fed or subsidized by the government. It's not. We use tax credits. The tax credits are bought by equity investor. The equity investor buys down the note of the property so we can have low rents. As I looked through portfolios of some of the people that were opposing the Midtown project, some of the things that we get criticized for is what they're doing. They have the Section 8 properties that every month they get a check no matter how many people are in there, and they only collect 30% of the tenant's rent, the tenant's income, and they get subsidized the rest with the federal government. I also went through and looked at the portfolios, some of the market rate portfolios that some of the individuals had. They are not taking care of portfolios. I like to believe, and hopefully why we're standing here is because we have a passion for what we do. And I think it reflects in our product. And obviously, I don't think we would be in Riverstone if we didn't have a good product. I hope that being there a year and a half, that Riverstone will actually state that we are good neighbors and we do have a passion for our product. So I think what I realized, or what I saw after I looked at these other portfolios, is our product is driven by our passion. The product and the people that are naysayers to affordable housing, the portfolios that I looked at were not well taken care of, and they look like part of a balance sheet, and they don't look like something. They don't look like a product that somebody's proud of. So I think that we gave the opposition the opportunity to come to the table and actually discuss this, and they didn't. I understand the reasons why they didn't. And I hope to believe that what we do is a good product for the community, and I think that that's one of the reasons why they're not here. So with this, what we're respectfully asking for is to get approval for our Riverstone West 3 apartments for $280,000. And possibly if we could get a vote on this, it could be contingent upon the city's approval. Obviously, the city has to run it through their process and get it approved. But we are prepared to move forward if we get a vote this evening in favor to move forward on construction of this on both phases, the center phase inside of John's Loop and the phase what we're asking to partner on. That will enable us to move forward. We cannot do this without LCDC support. We were not able to do the Mill River Seniors that we put in the sand put out on Saltese without LCDC support. The reason why we got the tax credits was the points that we get for urban renewal participating in what we've got. I think that also our public benefit on this particular one is a pretty neat thing. I think to take an acre and a half or 1.4 acres of property that the city will probably warehouse for many, many years and not use is a good use for it. If we've got the support from the city and the Parks Department that this will provide connectivity for future growth, I think that would be a good thing for the city. I think also that with our background to dealing with leads, that we can make this a neat PR event for Riverstone West for the commercial retail side, simply because of the xeriscape that we would put in there for the landscape. And if you follow the other communities, Spokane in particular, they're really making a big push for the xeriscape. And I think we can put that on the map in Coeur d'Alene at no cost to the city on a piece of property that's not going to be used. And I think with the counts that we came up with the bike path, it's going to be well used. I think it's well positioned. And the numbers that we came up with for the people using the path were in May. And I think that now I would assume that with the warm weather that we've got, that number would at least double, which would be 1,500, 1,000 to 2,000 people, I would assume, a day going back and forth on that bike path. So in closing, if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Prescott?
Yes.
The shapes of the areas where you're talking about the parkland,
Dean, you might have to go back to the table so people can hear you.
Good call.
I'm trained.
Yeah.
that's an odd-shaped lot. I don't understand. You mentioned swales. Is a portion of that swales for your units? What is the actual shape of the lot that you're purchasing from Stone?
Okay, the actual shape of the lot that we're purchasing is right here, if you can follow my, there's that's the easterly border. Goes along here, goes up to Suzanne. That's Suzanne, the new street that we built. Goes back out to John's Loop. So there's two parcels in there. It's an odd-shaped lot. We've adapted our site plan for that lot. The site plan that we have for that lot for those 38 units does not utilize the city property for drainage. What we would do is if we can get approval for this, we would, with the city's approval, use it for drainage because we can reuse that stormwater in the xeriscape that would be in the park.
So you do plan to use a portion of it for swale?
We would, and the dry swales is the rage right now on the green side. We don't have to. That's not a condition of this at all. We can self-contain on
It's a
site.
strange shape. I don't understand how it's,
I don't think when the bike path was made, this was ever trued up correctly.
the bike path was on the railroad. It's just odd shape.
Questions?
I doubt he made it odd.
Todd, thank you for what you and Mary Ann do as far as taking risk and doing this sort of thing. Could you explain a little bit to us and to the viewing audience the increase in property value? When your project's done, what's the land assessed at now, and what will it be assessed at when you're done? And how much dollar-wise improvement are you doing to the property?
I think Mary Ann could better address that.
Okay. Welcome.
See, now we have somebody that knows something.
And, well, actually, these are just approximates. The land, I believe, is about 600, maybe 700,000 right now. And that value, I would assume, I'm not sure if we're going to see a bump in that, maybe a minor bump. But it's the incremental value that our construction creates. Because of the state taxation code, the way that they have to value, the assessor has to value, is promulgated probably 2 years ago on an income approach and a commercial value approach as well. They take a three-pronged approach. So based upon that and our recent experience, we anticipate the increased value on this lot for the improvements to be $1.7 million.
And you're putting how much money in the improvements? Is it 3.6?
3.6.
Okay. So basically what you're doing is getting a 50% reduction in your property tax assessment.
And that's just state law, the way that they, yeah.
So you all understand they get a 50% discount or a reduction in their property tax assessed value of this. So they're paying property taxes on half the actual assessed value of the property via state law.
And the reason they promulgated that was because the rents are so low that you would effectively be taking the full rent if you did it at the full market value. And so they had to recognize that you have to look at the income that's generated and then take a percentage of that for your assessment, and cap it, and then use it as your assessment base.
So do you do these projects in other areas besides urban renewal areas?
Predominantly in Idaho, they have to be in an urban renewal area, or else they
all
won't
of your
get funded.
projects that you've done in this area or in any area are in urban renewal with urban renewal assistance?
Just
Yes.
recently, they changed the scoring criteria at IHFA. This is just over the last, since we've been in front of LCDC, this is when this has just taken place. Since that point in time, which is probably 3 or 4 years ago, we've worked with Post Falls Urban Renewal and we've worked with Sandpoint Urban Renewal.
So I guess that the answer is yes, all your projects are urban renewal assisted projects.
In the last two or three years in Idaho,
3 or 4
yes.
years in Idaho,
Before
yes.
that, you built projects without urban renewal assistance.
Because the state didn't require local community assistance in order to secure the tax credits. They decided that they wanted to see the financial support of local districts.
So to answer the question more direct, so of the 41 complexes that we're discussing, we've got 2 with LCDC, we've got 1 with Post Falls, and we've got 1 with Sandpoint. And then where our proposal is with LCDC for another one. So it's a total of 5 of 41.
Actually 6, because we have 2 with Post Falls.
Okay.
And those are in districts with
Yep,
urban renewal assistance.
all urban renewal, everyone.
Each one of these projects, this is the 3rd time you've been before us, and each one of them is unique and different. That's it's really interesting. On this particular one, the ask is to do the 5% of the project costs, which, if I summarize here, is a requirement of the IHFA for their $500,000 funding in this project, and spending that on basically what's called this sawtooth wild area that there's nothing going on for improvements. Why did you choose to do that instead of the public improvements on the roadways? Is it because your previous project with John's Loop already put in the curbs and the sidewalks and did all that infrastructure out front, or do you have an estimate of how much the cost the city is going to ask for your curb cuts and all of that linkage off of John Loops to access your property?
Todd, do you want to address that?
Yeah. So can you ask that question one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. This one's unique in the fact that you're making public improvements that, I guess from a theory perspective, is off your property that is not being required by the city. The city's not requiring you to do this. Mm-hmm. You're not offsetting costs that the city would normally be requiring on your projects, i.e. access off of John's Loop and putting in the public infrastructure improvements. I'd assume that most of that stuff is already in the street. There's probably water and sewer, all the swales, sidewalks, curbing, all that's been done previously by your other project that we participated in. Is that why the money for public improvements now is being put into this area directly behind your project in the form of a park?
Correct.
Okay.
And there's another reason. You know, when you walk that bike path, that's going to be unusual land that's just vacant, and it's not going to be very attractive. And so we thought about it, and we thought, you know, what could we do here so that we can continue that nice feel, and what are we willing to? And so that's why we're willing to do the maintenance, because it becomes a win-win. It not only improves public property, but then it makes the feel of that whole, so you don't have that unusual sawtooth looking, just standing out there. we thought it might become an eyesore.
Well, it also enhances the perceived value of your property and the rentability because you've got this developed park area right adjacent to your property line. I mean, the same thing can be said about the other side of the park or the path that you talked about. It's in the county right now. I mean, that whole side of that path is undeveloped, you know. So this is kind of a continuation of the existing Riverstone Park area. And again, it does enhance that part of it, but it's kind of like we're fixing half of the path, not from Park's perspective, not the whole thing for that experience. Chain link fence, you mentioned a 4-foot fence around the dog park. Is there any kind of a barrier or separation between your complex and the rest of this park area?
We haven't got that far yet. It has no bearing on us, but if it is used at the rate that we think it's used, possibly put some sort of like decorative horse fence there, not necessarily a chain link fence, something that's more intrusive, but something just so that you've got the feel that there is a fence there, and you can't go through onto the residential side. I think I would assume the city would address that.
Right, and what he's referring to is this hasn't been in front of anybody other than Doug Eastwood as far as the concept part of it from the city's perspective. So
You
Parks and
haven't seen it at
Recreation
Park and
hasn't
Rec.
seen it. No, this is the first that anybody outside of Doug's office has seen this park proposal that I'm aware of as far as the city process.
Troy?
Okay.
There was some city attendance at the charrette.
What's that?
There was some city attendance
Yeah,
at
it
the
was
charrette.
Troy Tymason?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any other questions? I don't mean to dominate the conversation here, but, yeah, right. What they're asked tonight is they want conditional approval from us. So, first time we've seen it, $280,000 of public money. You know, is this the best place to spend it? You've talked about the whole thing being contingent. It's really the IHFA funding that's contingent on our 5% participation, correct? That's the only, well, I guess I'm incorrect. The Raymond James is also contingent upon that. Okay, so you're telling us that absolutely if we as a group did not agree to fund at that level, you guys would not do this project? Or the 114 unit that's dovetailed with your Raymond James financing?
Correct.
Yeah, we can't
You wouldn't do it?
We
Because you
can't do
couldn't
it.
sell the tax credits, correct?
We wouldn't have the tax credits. They go
Right.
away.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have nothing to do it with. So.
Yeah. Other questions? Y'all have enough information to make a recommendation?
I would have to recuse myself. Prescott's. Okay.
I'm also recusing. We do work for the Prescotts and their various entities from time to time, not as far as I know on this particular project, however.
Correct.
Well, my take on this is and again, I'm sitting here as the acting chair on this thing, and I don't mean to dominate conversation, and Danielle, kick me in the shins if I need to shut up or defer to Plan C here. But I know that there's an urgency to do this on their perspective. I would like to see it run the normal course through the city before there's going to be issues that are going to come up on this, and I'd like the public to give some feedback on $280,000 of their money if developing this Sawtooth Park is in fact their perception. There might be something else that might be a better benefit other than creating this park with this leftover land. And so I would like to see Parks and Recs and General Services have a chance, a shot at this in council before we actually weigh in on expending the money to make this thing happen. Is this the right project for that area? I mean, because this is talking about another 114 units, and then they refer to a 55 and over senior project, which good, bad, or indifferent, maybe that's another product that's needed out there. But there's a lot of things that seem to crammed into this type of decision on making it happen. So I'd like to, I guess, digest that, because this is the first that I've seen this proposal package, and I would like to have a chance to at least think about it, get the public a chance to weigh in on it.
I concur with what you said. We need to get some information from Parks Department to Park and Rec, General Services, see how they feel about it. The $280,000, it basically is tax increment, tax money, the public's money that we're talking about spending. We've already supported a couple of these projects in our districts. I think at one time, in fact, when the initial discussion was to apply for it, I believe that you were told that there was maybe not a complete support for this project on the part of the board. I'd like more information before I made a decision.
I agree.
So
Al?
also running this into our budget, which we haven't done yet.
I didn't hear what you said.
Running it into the budget for next year. Brad?
So, Mr. Vice Chairman, what, if we support this, what are the conditions we're talking about that need to be on this? So it can be vetted by the Park and Rec and General Services. Are we talking about a conditional approval today?
That's the ask. That
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about deferring from making a conditional approval on this. I mean, I don't, that's just my perspective. I'd like to have, at least the public get a chance to weigh in on it.
As far as the 280,000, we're supporting that. That's not. Is that 280,000 in cash, or is that in a? What's the word I'm thinking of?
No, they're developing it.
It's an IRA, yeah. So it'll be paid out of the funds that generates the tax revenue.
Right. Scott?
Has the Finance Committee, so this is the first time anybody's seen it then? The Finance Committee hasn't had time to see if we could even afford it?
Without a vote, I think the choice of the commission is an approval with conditions, or Dave, more time to study it and see what the city and the park and everybody else does, and then this commission get back together and make a vote on it. It appears those are the two options.
Now, Doug Eastwood is supportive of this, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's endorsed it.
Have you talked to Doug?
No, I haven't.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I have not done so either. So I haven't gotten.
Well, this is real money we're talking about, even if it's an IRA, but it's not cash up front. It's future tax revenue that will be coming in. There's a lot of this community has a lot of working poor and working moderate income people, and I think these projects are important to people in the community, so they have decent housing at affordable rents. And I think there is a low vacancy. From my knowledge of the real estate business. So I'm okay either way, deferring this or putting this forward with some kind of a motion with a lot of conditions on it, such as the Parks Department, General Services. I'm just trying to get where you're coming from here so we can take action, move this forward, or whatever we're going to do with it.
Well, I think Ms. Prescott indicated with the conditional approval tonight that they'd go ahead and march forward with this project. I don't know what march forward means, but I don't want them to spend a whole bunch of money marching forward, whatever that, again, we define that as, until these contingencies would be satisfied. It might be 30 days from now.
There's conditions.
Yeah, so.
Well, I would support a motion to move this forward with these conditions. I guess I need a list of the conditions.
Make the motion.
All right, for purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion to conditionally approve this. And then let's talk about the conditions that need to be attached to this motion. So we've got General Services and Park and Rec.
Finance Committee?
City Council.
I guess the next question is, do I have a second for purposes of
Correct, you need
discussion?
a second for purposes.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, discussion.
I think we absolutely have to put
Finance Committee review.
Sure.
That's my concern at this point, is we need to make sure that we have the proper funds available to do this if we want to do this.
Well, from the Finance Committee side of the equation, if I understand how it would be structured, this would be with a note that we only pay as we collect tax revenue from the project. So
Right.
for the Finance Committee, it's really revenue neutral. There is no money up front. It's just a matter of you collect the taxes, and then they get reimbursed a portion of it. So from our side, Dave and Denny, there's not a whole lot to figure out unless I'm missing something. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
I'd
think-
make that part of it.
The only dollar decrease to our financial modeling would be whatever the increment is on the bare ground.
Right.
Because that's going to be deferred into paying back through the IRA.
Nope.
So I don't know how big that, it's not a very big number, I'm sure. 795,000, I
Yeah,
think,
that's
is
a good
what it's
point. Yeah.
assessed at, so.
I think Dave and Rod have encapsulated the financial flow of this. The other thing is that 2 of the 3 members of the Finance Committee are recused, so you really have Dave. Bringing it back to the Finance Committee is a little
Right.
bit of a waste of
Yeah, it's a little bit of waste of
And you're right, it's revenue neutral. The other part of that, though, is if we didn't have this type of project on that land, what kind of project would we have that would pay full boat taxes, where we would not be,
But it's
in
not paying,
essence, subsidizing a project?
it's not paying full boat, Deanne, it's only paying 50%.
And
because
so
of the-
even
the-
half.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a substantial potential revenue impact.
Well, it makes a difference on what other projects we can do in the future, too, because we're allocating future funds.
Yeah.
So we have to think about the benefit of this project versus something that might come along in the future.
Mr. Burns?
I would just say for Commissioner Hassel that we wouldn't be committing any funds. Those funds don't already exist. We'd only be committing funds if this project were to go, right? So it's kind of a...
I'm aware of the process there, but
It's a partial pledge of future increment,
Yeah.
so.
You know, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think as far as the land in Riverstone goes, apartments may be a good use for that land. It's not the most prime land in Riverstone for the highest intensity use. But I'm okay either way. I do agree we have a developer with a track record, and with an IRA, if this doesn't turn out for some reason, they aren't going to be getting any funds through the IRA project if they don't generate the funds. So I don't know how many of these projects are too much. I don't think we're there yet, but I do think there's a lot of low to moderate income people that need these projects.
Okay, so have we defined pretty much what those contingencies should be?
Yeah, is there anything we're missing here? And this is a pretty conditional approval that we're talking about, but
City approval.
Tony needs some help. City approval.
I think rather than defer this, I think if it's going to work or not work, we should just start the process with all the conditions to the approval and let it go through the system and see if it's going to go or not with Park and Rec and the general services.
Well, to say the condition is city approval, I mean, does that include all those steps of the city finance and GSA and
Parks and Rec.
Park and Rec? I mean,
I think everything we're thinking should be in there. That's why.
but if you just say city approval, wouldn't that encompass all of those?
I'll write down whatever you gentlemen want to put in there, gentlemen and ladies.
approvals would
Put in
mean
there.
committees, subcommittees.
Committees would all have to approve. Does that go in front of the city council then?
I don't think so. It would just go through Park and Rec as to whether this park project is an acceptable process, whether we want to deal with something like that.
Well, actually, I ran that by Doug Eastwood just so I understood the process, and he shared that it would go to Parks and Rec. If Parks and Rec liked this concept, they would make a recommendation to General Services that this is a good idea, and then that General Services would go to the full council to see if the council agrees that this would be good use of already owned city public space. Since the city already owns the land, would you be willing to have a park created on it? And then with the maintenance agreement and everything else that is being offered.
Yeah.
So it would go through that entire process.
So any contingencies other than the caveat, the umbrella of city approval, anything other than that?
Well, what all do you have on the list? We talked about 4 or 5 contingencies.
I think that's it.
I just have one
Mostly in the
City approval,
approval.
one.
City approval,
Yeah.
okay.
with 3 components to it, but just city approval.
All right, yeah, we don't have, we've talked about the finance committee part of it, all right. So I guess a lot of the conditions we're talking about basically have to do with city approval.
Certainly. Anything else you think to include in this process?
Am I missing anything? We get a park that they'll maintain.
And how long is that maintenance for?
Hasn't been negotiated yet.
That's a positive for the city.
Long-term.
So I guess is that one of the conditions, the
That would have to be something
long-term
sure.
maintenance agreement?
Yeah. That would probably come through Parks and Rec,
Okay.
because I don't know what Doug's estimation of how much it would cost annually, you know, what value is the annual maintenance of this park. I mean, they've got some things in here I don't think that they've got in any other parks according to the proposal. It looked like it called for natural dryland grasses.
Right, part of that, yeah.
Used to call that,
Weeds.
yeah, wildflowers. But I know that isn't what they're proposing here, but I don't know
Xeriscape.
what that is. So we need clarification, I guess, from a parks perspective as to what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, I don't know if the proposal includes maintenance and repair of the improvements to this park. You know, does it include maintenance of the chain link fence around the dog park or any of the amenities? You know, when they say maintenance, I think maybe they're talking about maybe mowing the irrigated parts and keeping that sort of thing picked up, but I don't know if it means, you know, parking lot or if there's any pathway or sidewalks that need to be repaired during the period of the agreement. So those are the kind of operational things
Right.
that need to be hammered out and the value placed on that.
Right. I wonder if Tony's documenting a lot of our thoughts that we're discussing
I've captured,
here.
you want me to read back what I've captured? Motion by Commissioner Jordan, second by Commissioner Hoskins, authorizing conditional approval of $280,000 in LCDC partnership funding for the Riverstone West Apartments 3 project contingent upon city approvals, which include Park and Rec acceptance, and then recommendation to General Services, and then a recommendation and approval by City Council that this city-owned land would benefit from being a public park, public space, and also contingent on city agreement to negotiate a long-term maintenance agreement with the developer. That's what I have so far.
Are we missing
The
anything?
280,000 is via 14-year IRA agreement.
Yeah, that's part of
Or
it, isn't
whatever
it,
needs,
Tony, that
whatever
it's
it's
through an IRA,
It'd be
Increment, going to be 12 years probably. Yeah.
tax funds
Whatever.
generated.
by 2027, it'd have to close out.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
And this, when does this come back to us then? Does it go through the process and come back to us, or what's the process?
Yeah, my recommendation would be that the city process would run probably, I don't know if they would be on the next Park and Recs Commission, then it'd go through General Services, then it'd get on a city council agenda. So it might not make it back to this board at our August 21st board meeting, but probably by September. But with conditional approval, it appears the developer is going to go ahead and move forward, but you wouldn't make a formal approval till the city conditions are satisfied, which might be in September.
That's what I'm clarifying. It comes back here for formal
Correct.
approval.
Correct. Am I missing anything, Councilor Quaid?
Oh, that's fine.
I think the developers probably have a pretty good idea of our discussion and what the conditions are in the process.
Okay.
Concerned by that?
Not at all.
I would assume that if it's in the city's hands, it's 1.4 acres of parks. I don't know how many acres of parks there are in the city, but I would assume that if there's life breathed into it, it'll end up as a park.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. You ready to vote on Brad's motion? Okay. All those in favor of Brad's motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. Looks like the ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you very
Now,
much.
thank you very much.
Commissioner?
Davis, you got it,
Vice Chair,
sir.
thank you very much for,
We need something to pass between.
no, we don't want gavels here. Okay, so that takes us then to our committee reports. Thank you all for your presentations. Committee reports. First is Finance Committee. Mr. Caldwell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will start first with the Lake District. And there is some fairly significant activity in the Lake District, primarily as a result of the McEwen project. If you go to the balance sheet first, the Lake District did experience an $84,383 increase in cash assets from month end, primarily due to the normal monthly tax increment check that we received from the county. There were no other significant activity on the asset side, so I'll go right to the liability side. On mortgages and notes payable, that line item increased $1.78 million over May, which is a result of a draw on the Washington Trust bond line of $1.8 million, and then we had our normal principal payments on debt obligations of $16,436, and those debt obligations are always running $15,700 to $16,300. So that's pretty normal, but the draw from Washington Trust was to pay the bill that we all approved to pay last month on the McEwen project. Everything else stayed about the same. If you go to the Lake District profit and loss statement, you'll see that we did get $137,873 in tax increment funds. We had rent income of $13,232, interest income of $500, for a total income of $151,605. Going down to the expense side, you'll see the one-time payment that we made for the $15,000 on the professional fees for the visioning initiative. That was in the professional fees item of $18,278. And then you go down a little further, you see the McEwen Park Phase 1 infrastructure, $1,806,125, which reflects the payment on the third invoice for CNI, plus payment of 2 of the Team McEwen invoices. A little bit farther down, where you see the repairs and maintenance of that $7,372, $5,900 was the contribution we made to a new air conditioning in the Olympia restaurant that Tony had sent out via email for everybody to look at.
Which we should point out is an LCDC-owned asset.
Yeah.
Property.
Yep. That's a good point. We needed to fix it up a little bit. It was kind of
We
tired.
are the landlord.
Yep. So, any questions on the Lake District before I go to the River District? Truly, the biggest activity is the park as far as large amount of cash. The River District had an increase in cash assets of $48,526 during the month. Liabilities and fund balance stayed about the same. If you go to the profit and loss on the Lake District, you'll see that we received $55,247 in tax increment revenue. We had interest income of $503 for a total of $55,750. All other expenses for the month stayed fairly static to where they typically are, in that we share some of our G&A expenses between the two districts, 50% sharing on those. So not a whole lot of activity in the River District this last month. It was primarily in the lake. Any questions about the financials for either the lake or the River District?
Questions
If not,
of Rod? Nope.
we'll go to the payables. And we went through these payables the other day in finance, and the only one we were missing was T. McEwen, which I guess we still don't have an invoice on. So I'll just start at the top on the payables. Rather than spend much time on the smaller items, maybe just go right to Hawley and Troxel, $1,614 for services they provided. Keith Erickson Consulting, our monthly bill of $1,400. And then Welch Comer doing their work for us on some validations, $1,480. If you go down the next line item, you'll see that we made our semi-annual payments on several of our debt obligations. Once we receive funds, we have paid. And you can see that some of them are principal and interest. Riverstone West Phase 1, for example, about 2/3 of the way down is all interest. That one you see is $110,239. Riverstone West, we had some significant principal reductions. And Mill River OPA, a large principal reduction on that one, $356,000. But if you take all those items and then add the payment that we make twice a year to Washington Trust on our bond of $1,040,000, The total is $1,647,103.41.
1 million.
I'm sorry, correct.
Mr. Baker.
1 million, yeah. Just a few zeros there, right?
Missed a few.
1,646,103 in that line item, which the bulk of it is the Washington Trust payment. We make that twice a year. So the total for that is $2,080,000. You go down to the next line item, you'll see the McEwen Park project. For the invoice number 4 is $1,023,194. Keeping in mind that those invoices are reviewed by several different folks before we review them. The city approves them, and you can see what's left remaining on the balance to draw on the note. And then you go down the education corridor. This is a final invoice. It's taken a long time to get this one finalized, but we are paying the $5,000 to MDM for phase 1. I don't know if very many of you have been down to the college and driven through there, but it really looks nice, the landscape and everything that they did. So that project turned out really well. So the total for us, and this would be the biggest total I think we've ever had, $2,679,480.61 in payables that we have this month. And as stated before, primarily McEwen, and then also our semi-annual payments, the biggest one being to Washington Trust. Any questions on the payables for the month? If not, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of the financials and also the payables.
Is there a motion?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded
For both financials and payables.
to approve the financials and also the payables. Any discussion? Okay, thank you, Rod, for that report. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda is the draft fiscal year 2014 budget discussion. Dave and I and Denny met with Tony, and he provided the information to start looking at for the budget. And so, Tony, if you go ahead and give the commission an update, please.
Be happy to. And just to remind everybody of the process, in July we set our draft budget because we have to have to the city by the September 1st of every year a formalized budget. So we're a little earlier on the budgeting process than some of the other entities in the state. So tonight we'll review a draft budget, and then you will authorize me to publish the draft budget in the paper 2 times before our August 21st board meeting, where we will have a public hearing on the budget, and then the board will authorize the budget, and then we'll get that over to City Hall. So that's the process. And tonight I'll kind of give you an overview of the proposed budget that we worked on at Finance. I have a couple extra copies for the audience out here that I'll just cover tonight. You know, did they make them down here?
I don't know.
Do you have any spares?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sleep at the switch.
He's still hung up on that last one.
It's part of that 2 weeks, Tony.
Gotta watch that vice chairman.
2-week retention gap here.
On the stopgap.
Take my chair out from underneath me to wake me up.
So basically, just to kind of give a summation of the budget for our Lake District, we have an estimated beginning fund balance for the next fiscal year of $2.3 million. We anticipate revenues of $11.2 million, and in that revenue amount is a draw of $6.8 million on our Lake District bond. Our expenses are anticipated to be $11.2 million, and that value also includes the $6.8 million draw on the bond, leaving us an estimated fund balance of September 30th, 2014 of $2.4 million. So that's the Lake District. In our River District, we anticipate starting with $2.9 million in cash. We anticipate bringing in $1.8 million in revenues. We anticipate spending a little over $1 million, which will leave a resulting fund balance anticipated for September 30th, 2014 of $3.7 million. So just a couple of the budget highlights that are in this budget, proposed budget, is that in order to calculate the tax increment, we are leaving the 2012 levy rates as is. Since LCDC is not a taxing entity, we use taxing entity levy rates to calculate the tax increments that's generated within our districts, and those won't be set till the fall, so we have to kind of have an idea of what they might be. And historically, we just kind of leave the old year's rates as is and use them for our budget. We did see a $7 million pre-Board of Equalization property value increase in our Lake District and a $10 million pre-Board of Equalization property valuation increase in our River District. So if things hold true as in past, when the valuations go up, levy rates usually come down and vice versa. So we might see a decrease in levy rates by the taxing entities depending on if they take their 3% or whatever they do. But we won't know that for a while. But for this budget, we're just kind of holding things steady on the 2012 rates. As I mentioned, the Lake District draft budget calls for a $6.8 million bond draw on our Washington Trust Bank line of credit. And the budget also includes, as Mr. Caldwell shared, our $2,080,000 annual bond payment that we pay twice a year to Washington Trust for this line of credit. And we are anticipated 70% bank financing for any capital acquisitions we agree to undertake in the fiscal year. On the expenses, the draft budget includes costs for LCDC's professional contract service for accounting, which is Gorley & Associates, our legal counsel, which is Holly Troxell and Elam & Burke, external audit, which is Magnus McHugh, community relations, Mr. Keith Erickson, and government relations, Molitor & Associates. In the Lake District, under expenses, we also included $46,000 for parking improvements associated with our 823 and 845 4th Street properties in Midtown, along with our 839 3rd Street property in Midtown. Once again, we budget for funds to take care of those properties up there on the hope that we can strike a deal with the housing company to form that mixed-use project in Midtown that we've been striving for several years. We're still trying to work that initiative, so I put money into the budget that if we can make that project happen in Midtown, that we have funds available to do the site work necessary. The Lake District also contains funds for demolition and site rehabilitation for 3 LCDC properties over on Park Avenue. That would be 618 Park, 620 Park, and 622 Park. So the Finance Committee thought this would be a good idea to take down in the next fiscal year 3 of the most dilapidated buildings we have over there on Park Avenue. And if the board so chooses to, we have the funds in the budget to effectuate that decision. We also have in the budget proposed transfer to the City Arts Commission for future public art projects located within our districts. For the Lake District, we anticipate $79,000 being transferred to the Arts Commission in fiscal 14 and $34,000 to the Arts Commission from the River District. And once again, those funds that we transfer to the Arts Commission have to be used within the district that those funds are generated in. Planning funds are budgeted for professional planning expenses for potential district-related initiatives. So, for example, in the Lake District, we have $100,000 planned towards the planning necessary for the Four Corner area project. The River District, we have $103,000 planned towards the proposed NIC sports complex and $200,000 towards engineering planning for the proposed Southeast Way roadway improvements. Even though we're not quite sure exactly what the Southeast Way improvements will be because it's a complex partnership with KMPO, the city, and other funders, we understand that we might have an opportunity to do some planning next year, so we've included a couple $100,000 towards that, hopefully in partnership with other entities. And finally, the Lake District budget special project reserve line item contains funding for the aforementioned property demolition that I talked about, and also $700,000 for possible redevelopment work associated with the Four Corners study area if the board to so choose. So depending on how that initiative moves forward, we get some planning dollars out there, we get something going that if it's far enough along in fiscal 14, we have some funds available to maybe do some capital expenditures on that front.
Tony, do we need to limit it by saying Four Corners? What about the BLM? Because that incorporates the planning now from basically Independence Point to Riverstone.
That is the way I encapsulate it. I mean, in the past, I can define that more in the notes saying that the Four Corner.
Yeah, let's define it as the BLM.
I think the Four Corners planning initiative now intentionally includes property all the way to
As we've identified in the past.
Riverstone.
Extended Corners.
Correct.
It is a bit of a, not confusing term, but a little bit of a loose term, and I think it'll be better defined once this effort gets underway.
Yeah, well, the committee announced that there are Four Corners. They defined it because they focused in basically on that area. But I think since then it's it's evolved to include from, like we said, Independence Point to Riverstone. So I think we need to include that in this terminology.
5 corners?
5 corners, yeah. 5 corners in the leg.
Okay, I'll make a note to do that.
Okay.
So up to the Highway 95.
Well, no, it's too
Beyond.
big.
Slightly
I guess
beyond that, isn't it? It's up to the private, to the fee title ownership on the right-of-way, correct?
In Riverstone, right?
So,
Yeah.
southern end of Riverstone. Basically defined by the BLM corridor.
Would entertain any questions the board may have on the proposed budget. As I shared, this is just the draft budget. All I need for you tonight, other than conversation, is that, just direction to go ahead and publish this, and then we'll have a public hearing on the budget at our August board meeting.
Move to proceed forward with the necessary advertisement postings.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to proceed with advertising the draft fiscal year 2014 budget as required by law. Any discussion? No discussion on the budget items? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
So, go ahead.
do you want me to go with the next item on the agenda?
Yes, if you would, please.
Okay.
We're done.
All right. The next item on the agenda from the finance is the NIC Sports Complex. Last time we met, you asked the finance company to go back, or the finance committee to go back and meet on this and talk about it, looking at our budget, looking at our cash. And, it's like anything we do, and we talked about this last time, it's a matter of where you allocate your resources. But if you look at our model, as we said last time, I do think that we can afford to do it. The Finance Committee looked at it, and we're coming back to you today with our recommendation that we give preliminary approval to do the $10 million of the roughly $15 million expense for the complex at NIC or for the event center out in Riverstone or wherever it ends up exactly being, with a few conditions in there that we would like to have in the project so that we can make sure it's done the way we want to do. I'm going to have Tony read those conditions, and then after he's read them, we'll talk a little bit more about what the Finance Committee was thinking. So, Tony, could you go ahead?
My pleasure. So the conditions, the draft conditions that we have to date on this $10 million partnership initiative is that, number one, we would need a formal request from NIC leadership to the LCDC for a binding commitment once the NIC leadership is ready. Third-party financial advisor. LCDC will seek the concurrence of a third-party financial advisor that the LCDC River District has a projected financial capability to adequately fund the proposed $10 million debt obligation. And this is a condition we had on our McEwen project too when we hired, engaged a third-party organization to help us with that bond analysis. The third condition involves the event center property, the arena property. The selected property parcel for the proposed event center needs to reside in its entirety within the LCDC River District boundary. The parcel also needs to be of adequate size to handle the planned event center development, for example, facility and parking needs. If the desired property parcel does not completely reside in the River District, NIC will need to advocate to the Coeur d'Alene City Council for the parcel to be included within the LCDC's River District. And if I might make a note, we have the presence of President Joe Dunlap here tonight, and President Dunlap, you don't have to write these down. I'll give you a copy of them. So we already have that.
Good note taker.
The next condition is fundraising. North Idaho College will need to have raised a proposed $5 million in fundraising and spend those dollars on the proposed event center project, land and facility, prior to the spending of any LCDC partnership funds. Event center management. Professional management of the event center needs to be given due consideration by NIC in consultation with the Community Advisory Board as a way to assure efficient operation, adequate outside event bookings, and income generation to reduce the burden on NIC's operating budget. as well as to manage for community use. NIC should be given the latitude to devise a management strategy to achieve this functionality without professional management if proven to be a viable alternative. The creation of a community advisory board is suggested as a condition to ensure that NIC administration does not become unyielding to the needs of the rest of the community. For example, the advisory board may suggest a memorandum of understanding be developed between NIC and the city regarding city recreation usage, which would be a valuable instrument in assuring community usage. And finally, event construction cost. A revalidation of the estimated construction cost of the event center as proposed needs to be performed prior to the end of 2013 calendar year. The revised cost estimate should include a sizable contingency amount. Those are the conditions that have been developed to date for this conditional approval.
So for the board, as Tony is reading through those conditions may be tweaked as we move along. We may need to add something we haven't anticipated. We may need to modify something that doesn't work for NIC, or as we move forward, there's just some things that have to change. But we really want to stress to the rest of the commission that when we have this study done by an outside firm to show whether we can afford to borrow roughly $10 million or maybe $10 million plus a little more to do something else, that not only can we pay it back, but that we have a cushion built into the project, just like we did for the McEwen project. We don't want to take undue risk, and we want to make sure we have funds left over for something that's totally unanticipated. It won't be as though we're going to have a lot of money left over for something anticipated, but we will have some money left over for things that are anticipated. And if they happen to be a participation agreement deal that we do, of course, those are revenue neutral. That's very important to us. There is a chance that part of this project won't be in our river district. So if that happens, our district is going to have to be amended somewhat, and that's a process. We felt really strongly as a committee that NIC needs to raise the money first and put their money in first, because you don't want to take the risk of we put all our money in and NIC ends up $2 million short, because you can't have a 2/3 done project and say, oh, this is our project, but we ran out of money. So we don't want to have that risk at all. And then as Tony was reading through it, for the community benefit, if we're going to spend $10 million and be the primarily funder of this project, we want there to be community benefit, park and recs and whatever uses. So that's why we're suggesting this board that would help us in those areas. So there may be other conditions the commission thinks of that we haven't thought of as a group. And if you have ideas or thoughts, we're open to those. It's a little difficult to think of all the scenarios, but I think we've worked fairly hard at coming up with most of the issues that we think are important. So Dave and Denny, have you add to that?
Mr. Chair?
Dave.
Okay. Yeah, and I think it's important to understand, too, that the $10 million and the $5 million isn't something that we generated. That was the original ask by the college. So we didn't go out and arbitrarily set those numbers. We've tried to, I guess, accommodate the request, what they're committed to do, and so we're saying, okay, this is what we'll do, and we certainly hope to partner with them and make this thing happen. So,
good comments, both of you. I think you said it pretty well. I think it's also our understanding that it's been represented to us from the beginning that, you know, without this kind of a commitment from this group, this facility will not come to be. So it's an important decision. I think one that will have a really pretty major impact on the community. Background music.
Very appropriate, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Care of Commissioner Hassel.
Sorry about that.
That's right. Thanks, Al. So, I mean, it is an important decision. I think it's been out there floating around long enough. I think we've heard, you know, kind of what support and lack of it is out there. And quite honestly, I think those of us on the committee, we haven't heard too many negatives. I think there's a sense out there that there are a fair number of people in the community, and a lot of people actually, that would like to see something like this.
yeah, I think we certainly want to have the community engaged in the discussion on this, because this is a huge thing for our, not only the city of Coeur d'Alene, but the surrounding area. And so certainly give us some feedback on it.
Yeah,
Get in, understand, ask the questions, get involved in this process, because it's a big chunk, and it's It's an important component.
That's very true. And this is, in effect, a preliminary approval. I mean, the college is going to come back and make a formal ask when they do some more of their due diligence. So we'll have some time to collect some additional community input. So comments or questions from the rest of the board? Deanna?
I think this is a real opportunity for the community. We need this. We have the opportunity to do it. I'm hoping that the college can get the job done as far as raising the $5 million, and it's going to be a very positive impact long-term on the community if we can make it happen. So I think it's good. It's a good thing.
Scott?
I also want to thank the Finance Committee for doing such a great job of providing a very thorough report. And move to approve to fund this conditionally as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the preliminary approval of the NIC Activity Center subject to the conditions that were articulated. Dave?
Do we want to put any sort of a, Tony, help me out here on the response from the college, but I know they've got a timeline they're working on. Do we need to include that with any of this? In other words, does this offer or this set of parameters good for a year, 2 years? At what point do we say it's no longer valid? Because I know we got involved a couple of times, well, at least one time with a previous project, much smaller scale, but it kind of went on infinitum, and I think we need to have some sort of a timeline on this thing.
Yeah, maybe that's condition number one. We say the formal request ought to be made sometime prior to the end of the calendar year.
If that, and maybe we could ask President Dunlop if
He's nodding his head
that
yes,
works.
that works.
Okay.
So we modify the first formal NIC, we'll make by first of the year, by first of 24.
By the end of the
Okay.
calendar year.
Yeah.
Calendar year or our
Well,
fiscal year?
or fiscal. You want to? That would be
Wouldn't their ask
September
come to us
30th.
by September 30th?
That would be the end of the fiscal year. Joe, what are you
Want to
comfortable
call
with?
them forward?
What are you comfortable with in
Going-
terms
going at
of
the
getting it
table.
back to us?
I think that we can have a formal request by the end of the year, and I feel comfortable with that.
Calendar year.
Our committee is going to the College Board at the August meeting.
Why don't you come on up, Joe, if you wouldn't mind, and we'll get you on record. Welcome, President Joe Dunlap, NIC.
Yeah, thank you. We would be comfortable with a condition to come with a formal request by the end of the year. We currently have a committee made up of community members that is working on putting this project together. And it is our timeline to go to the College Board at their August meeting with a recommendation to move forward with this project or not. And it would be at that juncture that a decision would be made to come with a formal request. So I think that a contingency to have it done by the end of this year is certainly acceptable.
Joe, our fiscal year ends on September 30th. Is that too soon?
I think that would be a little too soon. I would request that we do that by the end of December if that's not too late. I actually think we will have the request to you in September, but a little additional time would not preclude failure of the project.
Right. Tony, is there any reason we can't bump that into the next fiscal year?
No.
Okay. Any other questions of Joe while we have him up here? Thank you, Dr. Dunlap.
Thank you for your consideration.
You're welcome. So we're in the middle of
Motion to
discussion.
approve as amended.
Okay. Seconder, okay with that?
Second.
Second's fine.
So the only amendment is to put a December 31, 2013 end date on the formal ask from the college. Any other discussions? Covered all the conditions for everybody's satisfaction?
I think over the last couple of decades, a community center, besides the community center, I've heard an arena over and over from people out in the public. So I think this is something the community wants and needs, and I think if this is going to happen anytime in the foreseeable future, it's probably going to be here through LCDC, probably through this arrangement. So, and there's a lot of advantages to have the college's operations budget in this. I've had people ask me about that out on the street. So I think there's a lot of reasons this is a good project for the community. And I think you mentioned at one of the previous meetings about having some sort of a public facilities committee made up of stakeholders from the community and the college and the different entities, and I think that's important, and that's in the motion, so to ensure that there's, as well as the college's uses, that it's open to the community for all kinds of different events. So I think we have the makings of a good project here once this is vetted out.
Okay, anybody else? No further discussion, on call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have
I
from
have one
finance.
more just to hand out the quarterly report.
Okay.
So non-finance committee members, if you could just
Oh, yeah,
pass
I've
on.
already got mine. One more, Tony, on this side. Two more, actually. Sure we'll be here.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I've just handed out the third quarter update of our third quarter report showing the progress to date on the different initiatives we have in each of our district, the Lake and River District, along with an update of our strategic property portfolio performance. So as I usually share, if you have a chance to look through this, if you have any questions, just give me a call and I can address any issues. But this is a good report, just to kind of get a good view, a good summary of how all our initiatives are progressing.
Thank you for preparing that, Tony, for us. Also, either Rod or you, we have McEwen Park Initiative update on the agenda, unless you took it off.
No, it's on there.
We are going to take a little tour afterwards for those of you that are available. Do we have any information you want to share on that, Tony?
No, just an update is that things are still progressing well. We have our weekly Wednesday morning meeting. We had that this morning. There's no major issues at site. They're just trying to get after it, and this weather is being cooperative, so everything is moving forward fine.
Okay. All right, so Tony was reminding me that we have appointed chairs for both the Housing and the Parking Committee. I haven't had a chance to talk to either of the new appointees about being called upon. Deanne is currently away from the table. Brad, do you have anything to report on parking to put you on the spot?
No, not today, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And we'll pass over the housing as well, unless you have anything to add, Tony.
Well, there really is no report from the housing. We have no progress on anything in Midtown yet, so we're still working that issue. And just to help Mr. Jordan out, Commissioner Jordan, I just briefly, the Downtown Association's daily passenger shuttle bus service is up and running, been up and running since June 15th. Ridership has been small, not heavily used at all, except kind of for the Ironman weekend. And so the Downtown Association, in partnership with the city, is evaluating the effectiveness of that endeavor and deciding whether or not to keep funding that as the summer months, as the summer weeks click on. So.
Would they consider maybe having it for the Art on the Green weekend, the Taste
Yes,
of Port
they,
Line?
actually, the Downtown Association has a separate initiative where they provide shuttle service for that program. So that's all I have.
All right, so that takes us to Communications Committee, Mr. Patzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd asked Keith Erickson, our Public Relations gentleman, to join us at the table up here. Keith will be going over some updates on videos, our online advertising updates, July newsletter overview, and our website and public outreach initiatives. So with that, Mr. Erickson, welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be here. I guess I'll start with the momentous decision to move forward on the NIC complex. We are going to share this with the media. I think it's important for the public to know, what's going on. It's preliminary. We're going to wait for NIC to do what they do, but we are going to share it with the media. I see they're not here, but the board and I have been working on a release to send to them to answer any questions. It's big news and exciting news, potentially, for the community. So seeing how it works forward, I will be working with the media to share, what the action taken today preliminarily to move forward. Secondly, on May 17th, we released a video that we've been working on. We've all seen, hopefully, and know about. There's actually two videos. There's a 7-minute and a 3-minute, and a lot of good responses. It started off slow. We put it on our website, Facebook page. We're advertising it with any means that we can. It went from Tariq, who works with us at the LCDC, it went from 44, it reached 44 people in the first few days and got 6 clicks, meaning 6 people watched it. And I'll just fast forward and not belabor it. But so far, it's reached 5,000 people, which sounds exciting and everything, but it's got actually 213 people have seen it actually in the last month report. So if you combine the 3 months that it's been out, and I just got these numbers, so sorry they're scattered, we have had so far 300 people watch the video. And if you watch it and then watch it again, it's not counted as twice. So we have had 300 people watch it, and we're continuing to look for ways to saturate the market and would welcome any ideas on how to do that. One of the ways we are going to do it, and we're in the midst of doing this, is with Channel 19, who is broadcasting this now. They have downtime that they have what they call filler, but a lot of people are on that channel all the time, so we're going to try to move forward to have the video play there. Whether it's a short or long video. I mean, a lot of exposure, a lot of people watch that. I'm working with Jeff in the booth to make that happen. So I will keep everyone posted on that. So really, the video, I think, has been a success. The feedback that I've gotten has been positive. They like the fact that it's informative. It's not overly promotional. It's just informative, and it reflects on some of our successes. So the video is doing well. We continue to advertise online with some online sites, including Huckleberries, which continues to do well. Usually I give you a breakdown of real specific numbers. I won't go that far, but I will say since June 1 through last week, we've had 283 people click on our online ad that takes them to the McEwen site webpage, which allows them to see our homepage if they want to, or the webcam of McEwen. It also takes them to a site map, and it gives them a parking update, so it gives them all the information that they need, as well as information about us. So it's been really successful and continues to be with the spokesman, which we've done for several months. We just started with the press, not as impressed with what I'm seeing at the Coeur d'Alene Press, just because we're in different sections. And to be brief, we're in different sections, and we pop up once in a while. Sometimes we're there, sometimes we're not. They guarantee us these views, and I'm sure we're getting the views that they're saying. But I don't know whether it's 2 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon or when we're getting these views. And they also won't analytically tell me whether the 4 sections we're going to, where we're getting the hits, so to speak, without elaborating. So Tony and I have discussed this. We started in June 1st, and we're going through July. So I don't know whether there needs to be discussion. I'm very happy, continue to be with the Huckleberries ad, and the huge following they have. Not so pleased so far with the outcome of the press ad. So I'm sure they're trying hard, but I'm not sure. So I would entertain any direction you want on that front. And then finally, our newsletter, our 16th newsletter came out today. Some of you might have gotten it. Hopefully it deployed. And the topics, we looked at Southeast Way, which came up today with Mr. Prescott, and all the activity going on there, and how we might not be we definitely had a partnership with the infrastructure and everything that went on there. And I talked to some of the players involved. So there's an informative piece there that I hope that the viewers will take a look at. Also, an update on McEwen Park, but even more importantly, I took a look at parks. I talked to parks officials across the country to find out what have parks done for your community. I mean, if you've done a major revitalization of parks, has it stimulated the economy? What has it done? And these are credible people that have been involved in projects that have some good things to say, and it's kind of exciting. Anywhere from the Spokane Valley to Bellevue, Washington, these people, it's not an expansive, long story, but it's these parks officials saying why not only maintaining and building parks is important, but how it draws people and what it does for the health of a community, for not only economically, but physically. So anyway, that's another piece. And then I've got a profile on our own Mr. Hassel, who is also in the newsletter. We always try and feature a board member. So hopefully, as a reminder to the viewing public, you can subscribe to our newsletter by going to lcdc.org, clicking on subscribe, and when you go to lcdc.org, you can also view the video, our new video, and look at McEwen, and as a whole collage of information. That briefly is my report. I would welcome any questions.
Questions of Keith?
Thanks for the report.
Yep. Thank you, Keith.
You're very welcome.
Good work, Keith.
Yes, Scott?
How much are we paying monthly for the 300 a month?
Or which one?
Press?
Correct.
Each, 300 a month for each, and they're both getting about the same amount of hits as far as the hits are. We're getting about probably 200,000 views, but the people that actually click on the view are much less, so it's the equivalent, as I said, so the complete clicks is 283 that actually, because if you picture yourself going to a website, you typically, most people don't click on it, so the percentage is low, but we are getting 283 people, or we did get 283 in the last 5 weeks, who clicked on it, went to our site, and found out more about us. And these are all unique
in which paper,
views.
Keith? In which paper?
Combined.
Actually, in each. Yeah,
In each.
right. So what we're getting total in the last 5 weeks is 283 viewers between both,
Okay.
and it's almost evenly divided. So I think it's 160 from the spokesman Huckleberries, and then the press. But again, they don't analytically tell me. I don't have a breakdown on
So your concern is really just the analytical metrics that you don't get?
exactly, and the frequency. I'm constantly on there to see when it shows. For example, when you go to the Huckleberries, we're always there front and center. It's a little ad. When you go to the press, you don't know when we're going to be there.
Okay.
So we'll continue to analyze it, and I'll look for direction from the board on whether we want to extend another month with the press. I would recommend that we continue with the Huckleberries, because despite the fact that we've been there for several months, the numbers aren't declining. We're still getting the clicks. We're still getting the interest on Huckleberries, which has a big audience.
Al, question?
Question as to our previous motion on these two. I know that the press was approved through July. How about the review?
My recollection is that we approved, basically said, let's run these through the park project. Is that right? Both of them.
Well,
We can always change our mind, but I think we've approved running them right now.
Exactly. What we did
Does that sound wrong,
initially-
Tony, to you? Keith?
I'm sorry.
Go
What
ahead.
we did initially was have it for 3 months and suspended it when construction stopped, because there frankly wasn't updates to do, and it's taking them to that page. And then once work was resurrected, we took them back to that page. And so right now we're on a 3 month to 3 month with the spokesman. With the press, we're on a month by month. We can cancel it whenever.
Yeah, I was talking more about our approval as opposed to the contract
Right.
papers, but
Yeah, that's what the board had.
maybe it makes sense, well, you think about this, maybe it makes sense to stop them again at some point, but I think during the winter even, it's good to have something.
I think especially as work culminates with McEwen, I think there's a lot of interest. The fact that when we take them there, that we've got the webcam and the updates, I think that there's a lot of interest and a lot of a lot of good that comes out of that. So, but that's a board.
That answer your question, Al? Maybe.
Maybe.
Still a little fuzzy.
Yes.
We can do whatever we want.
Question is,
Yeah.
do we want to,
Yeah.
do we need a motion to continue? And if we do, for what time periods?
I don't think we need any motions at this point unless you want to discontinue some of it.
Okay.
We could stop at any time, isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and I may have misstated, when I said the 3-month it's not really a contract, it's, if I called either newspaper and said, you know what, we want to end, it is a month-to-month thing, but I mean, we're not committed to anything. But I do see the benefit, at least from the spokesman. I wish I could quantify it more than the number of people going there, but it's doing what we're trying to do, and that is broaden our exposure.
Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next takes us to the Executive Director's report. Tony.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to update the board. As you know, we have a vacant LCDC Board Commissioner position, our good friend Jim Elder's seat that we're looking to fill. We advertised for applicants that were interested in this position. The closing date on that application timeframe was last Friday, and I'm happy to report that we have 9 applicants for the position, and alphabetically they are listed as Mick Arman, John Austin, Greg Bruns, Joe Fabiano, Tina Johnson, Robert Ketchum, Nancy Lowry, Julius Picard, and Brian Simpson. So the process that we have invoked on this is that an ad hoc committee has been established comprised of Commissioner Hoskins, Hassel, and Druffel. This committee has already been given the resumes of these fine 9 folks, and that we'll start the process of reviewing the applications here shortly and come back to the full board with a recommendation hopefully within the next month or so.
Very good.
And finally, just a quick review of the third quarter status of our goals. Jeff, if you could throw that one slide up on the TV, I will be brief as we go through this. Here's a hard copy for folks. I always like to take the opportunity to share with the board that they're doing well. And I'll do so again here today. But you can see that the goals for our fiscal year 2013, 3 quarters through the year through June 2013, we're looking pretty good. Just a couple yellows up there. Yellow kind of meaning this is a cautionary. We may be in jeopardy of not attaining these goals by the end of our fiscal year. But I think Mr. Patzer wants to arm wrestle me on my yellow on the 4 corners. I believe we are probably further along than that with the Parks and Recs Commission taking the lead on that. So I am willing to take that.
Left or right-handed?
Left or right-handed. I'll probably need both hands with Mr. Patzer, but we'll turn that to green. And I think we're probably going to have to kind of roll over the student housing opportunity with NIC as we continue to, as that 4-corner study continues to mature and we kind of see what that opportunity might be. So we probably will roll that into 2014. But looking very good. That's all I have.
Thank you, Tony, for that report. Board Commissioner comments? I'll start them off. I have wanted to give you just a real brief report on the CDA 2030 activity, which we've assisted in funding. They've had some meetings. I serve on the Community Advisory Committee as Frank Orzel out here. We had a meeting on Friday last to kind of give us an update. So I'm just going to hand out a little sort of a flyer that they developed. Some of you may have seen that we were in the parade. We've hired an executive director. They have a good working group, and I think they're working on some website presence. They've been at a number of activities. I know that Dr. Buck was at our Rotary the other day talking about it. He'll probably be at the Friday Rotary soon if he hasn't been. So that effort is on its way. Other comments? Seeing none, public comment. It's our last opportunity today for public comment. Anybody out there in the audience? All right, see none.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm still waiting.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you very much.